Hey guys, welcome back to Oopsie Daisy. Thanks so much for joining me today. We have a very special treat. You've heard him on the podcast before. He's been my partner in crime. My husband, Chris Hirdler, is riding solo behind the mic today. He's got a special message on his heart for you, and I hope you enjoy it.
All right, here we go. My name is Chris Hirdler. I am married to Amanda, and I have asked Amanda to give me an opportunity to come on and do a podcast. This has kind of been something that I have been thinking about for the better part of the past week or month. If you guys remember, I was on a couple weeks ago, maybe the last episode before the new year, and was just talking about some different things. And, I'm going to give this a try. A lot of what has been on my heart recently is insecurity. And so I literally just told Amanda to set this up and let me do this because everything in me is telling me not to. And a lot of the reasons to sit here and do this right now is because the longer I would sit and not do it, the more likely it is that I wouldn't, because I would let my insecurities win. And so I'm just gonna start talking and kind of see where this goes. Many of you probably don't know that my day job is an alcohol and drug counselor. And so I do a lot of different talking. I have a lot of people that approach me and kind of bring their stuff to me. And so, one of the things that was talked about in group just recently was insecurity. And I know I deal with a lot of that. And I know typically Amanda's listeners this is probably gauged towards women. I do know that there are some men that listen, but, I just thought that it was an opportunity for me to come on and just kind of share a little bit about insecurities, specifically insecurities in men. Because I know for me, I was taught to be strong, silent, be self-sufficient. That brought a lot of pressure, and beneath that pressure, the insecurity that I have dealt with goes unseen and unspoken. I don't like to talk about it. I mean, I don't know who does. And I think a lot of times, people see me as a counselor. They come to me and want answers, and they want to be vulnerable, and then they expect that I have the answers. And a lot of times, I feel like I might, but also a lot of what people come to me and talk to me about are the same darn things that I'm dealing with. And so I just kind of wanted to maybe take this opportunity to, I don't know, maybe do some education, maybe just do some understanding, but inevitably break the silence that is out there on insecurities with men. And so when I think about insecurities for me, it's that internal doubt about my self-worth, my ability, who I am, and what my identity is. And I know a lot of my insecurities, when I think of my ability, kind of come from after like post 2005 for me. As a 23-year-old, I dove into a lake and broke my neck. And my medical diagnosis was incomplete quadriplegic. And so for me, I lost part of my identity and ability to be an able-bodied 23-year-old and play baseball. And so a lot of my worth and insecurities, I think, started around then. But, I think about a lot of the common insecurities that I probably deal with and others deal with is like this fear of that I'm not man enough. Most people that know me, I'm not great with a hammer. I mean, honestly, if someone asks me, hey, grab me this Phillips screwdriver, and I'm like, which one's that? There's two options. There's the flathead or the Phillips. And I don't know. And so I'm not one that really likes to fix a toilet or do some of that stuff. And so I have some insecurities that I'm not man enough. I've got some friends that are just amazing guys, right? And they can fix stuff and this and that. And it's like, you're around that, and it kind of creates this social insecurity and this fear. I guess it'd be a fear for me, is this fear of rejection, and I don't fit in because I'm not your typical man. I'm not like the roar, 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 pound my chest, give me the trucks, go shoot some guns, spit and tobacco with a cowboy hat kind of guy. I'm not. I guess I'm more feminine when it comes to some of that. I mean, I like to vacuum. I like to sweep. I like to do laundry. I'm a listener. I'm emotional. And so a lot of that insecurity of not being man enough is there for me. But another one that a lot of people deal with specifically for men is that financial and career inadequacy. There are a lot of men that want to be and need to be the breadwinner. In my household, I'm a counselor. I'm not going to be able to retire for a pretty significant amount of time. I don't make a lot of money. We didn't get into what I do to be a millionaire. There are men that certainly struggle with that. They would never want a woman to make more than them. And I come from that as like, if my wife and I are working together and the money goes into one pot, then it's our money. I don't care if you make 3 times that I make. That doesn't bother me. But I know a lot of people struggle with that insecurity. There's that emotional vulnerability. I think a lot of guys struggle with that. I know for me, one of my big things is, and I know this might shock people being that I'm a counselor and I see people cry a lot. When I see people cry, that I get like squeamish, because the caretaker and the helper squirrel in me really wants to make them stop, because it makes me uncomfortable. Now I know that's not the right way to do it. I want people to be able to cry. As a counselor, I want them to seek and find their feelings and share their emotions. But I know for me, when I think about being man enough, part of being a man was, don't cry, don't show emotion. And so, weakness has its own negative connotation. I mean, nobody likes to show that they're weak. And yet there is this thing out there that being emotional is weak. And I don't think that's accurate at all. And another big one too is, when I think of insecurities, is a topic that a lot of people don't talk about, is, sexual performance and relationship experience. When I was in college, you talk about, how many women have you been with? How many have you done this? And it was like this badge of honor. If you had a guy that's like, I've slept with 30 women in the last 2 months, it's like, holy crap, it's impressive. But also it can lead to some insecurities. One of my biggest insecurities is having a spinal cord injury, is that they said I would never walk or have kids again. And so within that is issues with erectile dysfunction. My nerves, they don't send the message. And part of what it feels like to be a man, especially as a young man, and all of this, is that you're supposed to be able to perform. These insecurities have been something that I have dealt with for certainly the past 20 years, since I broke my neck in 2005. And these insecurities don't mean that as a man I am weak. They mean I'm human. I don't necessarily like talking to other men who are specifically able-bodied about some of this stuff, because I don't like to be perceived as weak. And I also don't like how society perceives males as weak if we don't man up, and if we don't do some of those things, right? And over time, these messages teach us to suppress our emotions rather than process them. And I would say I didn't process a lot of emotions. I certainly didn't really even understand some of the stuff I was going through. That, to me, led to emotional isolation, difficulty asking for help. It wasn't up until about a few years ago that I would ask for help. A lot of that isolation and insecurity too it leads me to bottle up stress. It leads me to have anxiety. It leads me to not want to share with my wife what's going on, share with others. One of my biggest fears in life is fear of being alone. That also can lead to this fear of failure and rejection. But also, I think some of that fear of rejection can lead me to not put myself out there, to keep those insecurities alone. Because, right now, you think about it, we live in a world right now, if I have an opinion and you don't agree with it, there's a lot of people that'll tell you that you're wrong. They don't want to listen. They don't want to hear my opinion. They don't want to have a mutual conversation. They're just going to tell me I'm wrong. And all that does to me and to many other people's is just elevate that level of insecurity. Because the story that I'm telling in my head is that this person is not a healthy outlet for me. This institution, this place is not a healthy outlet for me. And so you continue to be stuck in that, right? And or if you have a lot of insecurities, you often find things that are unhealthy that can kind of lead you and continue to lead you to kind of validate your thoughts on your insecurities, that you're not a man, that you're not lovable. I hope you're bearing with me. I'm kind of all over the place. I'm even insecure right now as I'm talking to you guys about some of this because the story my brain's telling me right now is this even making sense, Chris? Why are you doing this? Right? Is anybody even going to care? There's nobody else that feels and thinks like you do. My brain is telling me to avoid and to pull away. And, I was having a conversation with Amanda the other night because obviously we're very open about the stuff in our life, the adultery, the divorce, the getting remarried, the getting back together stuff. And people would probably think, hey, you guys must have the best perfect marriage and communication. You're a counselor, Chris. She does a podcast. Well, that's all a bunch of garbage, man. We don't. The past few weeks, I have literally probably not been the most fun person to be around. I was pulling away. If any of my friends are listening, they're gonna hear this because I haven't been replying or reaching out. I've been pulling away from a lot of relationships. I haven't been pulling away from responsibility. And what I mean by that is I'm still going to work and I'm still getting the kids to where they need to get and making sure that stuff's done around the house, but I'm not reaching out to my friends. I don't feel like they need to know or want to know, or that I could be a burden on them. And so it's frustrating because like socially, I'm a pretty outgoing person. I think a lot of people would say I'm an extrovert. I feed off of other people. But I think a lot of times when my insecurities come up and the feelings of uncertainty, inadequacy, self-doubt, those kind of stem from a belief that I'm not enough in some way. That whatever is in me is that it's not enough to be around somebody or that they would want to be around me. I think the older I've gotten, I don't worry too much about my appearance, my body image, my weight, how my skin looks, my height, and any of that stuff, or even what I wear. I mean, I pretty much rotate like 8 different articles of clothing because, at 44, I don't care. I'm kind of accepted that I'm 44 and I'm going to have a dad bod, which I think people find attractive. I mean, I don't know. Often our insecurities are underaddressed, and that could deeply impact a man, especially our mental health. Men are not typically someone who wants to share their feelings. And oftentimes when we don't, it comes out ass backwards. We're angry, and our anger can come out in different unhealthy ways. I mean, you think about the mental health crisis that's happening in the world and the amount of people that are dying by suicide, the amount of the depression that's going around, anxiety. There are so many different things. There's so many chronic disorders that are happening right now because of insecurities. And you have to think about where do these insecurities come from? I don't remember specific events in my childhood that would have been like, oh my gosh, that's gonna follow me into my 40s. But I do know, based on what I do for a living, that insecurities do come from childhood experiences. And that could be criticism, that can be comparison, that can be neglect. Social comparison, that's a big one for the kids nowadays, you guys. And you see it in adults. Go on Twitter, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, and you see people put all of this stuff on. And you have the filters and stuff like that. And you think about just the social comparison that why put a picture on there of something that's not real? It's not reality, right? Then we become critical of ourselves because what we're posting and putting on there is not what's really going on. It's just this fake facade. It only, to me, kind of continues to validate and make these insecurities a bigger issue. And then you think about the impact that insecurities have on our relationship, the relationship conflict, and the emotional distance that can come, the difficulty with intimacy and trust, right? I mean, if I'm insecure, I certainly am not going to trust people, let alone myself. And I've made some really stupid decisions in my life just based on what I know now is my insecure self, my low self-esteem. I would try to be someone I wasn't around people because I wanted to be liked because I didn't like myself. There was a time, it was a pretty extended time, where I did not like to brush my teeth with the lights on. I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. not a lot of people knew that about me, because I think a lot of us can, leave the house and skip and jump and do all the things. And everyone at work's just like, man, that guy's so full of life. He's so jovial, and he's just gotta have it, and then when you get home and you take your clothes off and you're getting ready for bed, and then it's like, it's me again. It's just me alone and the committee in my head telling me all the things. You're not good enough. You can't read. You're dumb. You're a horrible husband. Your boss hates you. Your friends don't communicate with you. No one asks you to do anything. On and on and on. And so I didn't like who I was. So I brushed my teeth with the lights off, and I wouldn't look at myself. I don't think that way anymore. But that is something that really truly has been a big thing to me, is that the insecurity I have specifically about what others think of me. I will sit and tell you, I don't care what other people think. I'm lying. I am lying. I do care. I mean, the insecurities that I have in myself, I must have learned them somewhere. I must have just brought them with me, because I know many men don't struggle because they lack strength. It's because they've been taught not how to show vulnerability. I'm in the 40s, and I think people, maybe my parents, my in-laws, and even the generations that are older than me are not there. They weren't a generation of vulnerability. I think that was a generation of, less talk, don't share a lot of things. We deal with a lot of this stuff in-house within our family system. We don't tell a lot of people. And I think that can go hand in hand with that insecurity piece. I think about there's an opportunity that is out there, and there's an identity that can be lost. I think the things that I'm working on is, who do I want to be, right? What is the legacy that I want to leave behind for my kids? And I want them to see a dad, a father, a husband, a brother, a friend who is willing to be vulnerable, who's willing to share when things suck, right? To know that I am not always the strong person that people see, that I still struggle and deal with negative self-talk, that inner critic that I have in myself that judges, that shames and undermines myself, that I'm not going to be good at this. And even now, as I'm sitting here thinking of this, 20 minutes in, I don't feel like I'm good at this. But I also know that this is an opportunity. And every opportunity that I miss is an opportunity that could be for the good. And so I need to do stuff like this. I need to be vulnerable, because being vulnerable to me is an important aspect of growing for me. I struggle with fear of what people are going to say even about this. Insecurities and negative self-talk feed each other, right? That insecurity creates negative thoughts. In group, we call them ants. And if you're not familiar with what that means, as an ant is an automatic negative thought. And so negative thoughts strengthen our insecurities. That cycle repeats itself and will continue to repeat itself until it's interrupted. And for me, the only way to interrupt it is to talk about it, is to be open and vulnerable, is to be naked on the highway, if you will, which none of us would want to see that. Like, not me. I wouldn't want to see myself naked on the highway. It's not a pretty sight. Specifically now, it's, -6 degrees in Minneapolis. I'm white as snow. That's not a pretty sight. But, breaking that cycle and kind of discussing and working through my insecurities is an important part for my emotional growth. And some of that too is just being aware. I need to be aware. I need to notice that inner voice. I need to be compassionate to myself. I need to be compassionate for the people around me. I'm not an easy person to deal with, especially when I have the committee in my head telling me all that is not true, but yet I believe it's true. The story in my head continually tells me that something's wrong or somebody's off. I have a huge fear. And the best example I can give to you is anytime somebody asks to talk to me, or says, hey, I get a text from the neighbor. Hey, can we chat later? My first thought is something's wrong and I did something wrong. I would love to know where that came from. I can't pinpoint it, but it immediately creates a sense of fear and insecurity and self-doubt that I have done something. I get anxiety and I get this fear, and I produce all of this chaos in my head. And then all of a sudden I meet with the person or I talk to the person. It has nothing to do, none of that stuff that I've just spent time, my heart pounding, this and that, creating all this false narrative in my head about something that's going to happen. And so I know for me, I have to notice the inner dialogue and the inner voice that I'm having in the head. And I have to ask myself, how do I change that? How do I work on that? And I think one of the first things for me is to do what I'm doing right now and try to be a platform for other people to understand that there's a lot of insecurity in people. It's not just happening to you. It's not something that just you are dealing with. I want to share with everyone to create a positive platform, to be able to talk about our insecurities, to make it not such a taboo topic that it's something that we need to be scared about. That if we do share that it's a failure, or that I need to compare myself to others. As I was kind of doing a little research about how God encourages replacing fearful thoughts. And the scripture doesn't just say, don't be afraid. It teaches us how to redirect the mind. And one of the passages that stuck out to me was Philippians 4:8. And it says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, think about such things. I think that closely aligns to the modern understanding of negative self-talk, because what it's talking about too is that thoughts shape emotions and our behavior. And if I'm sitting thinking negative self-talk, and I am dealing with a lot of insecurities, whether that's fear, whether that's rejection, whether that's low self-worth, doubt, those are going to shape my emotions. And then obviously those are going to shape my behaviors. And my behaviors are going to come out as that I'm irritable, that I'm discontent, that I'm quick to judge, that I'm going to start believing the words and the thoughts that are in my head about I am not enough, that I can't do it. Would I speak to a friend, or would I tell my daughters the same thoughts that I'm having? Would I tell my wife that? And what impact that is having on me? One of the things that I think about is, how can I replace self-criticism with self-compassion? And self-compassion is not self-pity, it's self-respect. And respect is a big word to me. How can I respect others if I don't respect myself? It's a lot easier for me to speak kindly to other people, but oftentimes I think a lot of us don't use that same verbiage and that same kindness when we speak to ourselves. I'm not saying anything that is groundbreaking, but I know for me, I'm trying to, and I'm learning to accept the imperfect person that I am. And that's kind of a hard thing to chew on. For the majority of my life, I wanted to be a perfect husband. I wanted to be the perfect son, the perfect brother, the perfect friend. And that's a lot of pressure to be under. And I know for me, a big thing that is with insecurities is I love being acknowledged for the things that I do. And I'm learning too, is like the acknowledgement that means something to me. That's that's one of my love languages. It must be is, words of affirmation. And I'm learning that those affirmations and those words are important to me, regardless of the outcome. I got to be honest. I still am someone, if I give you a gift, and if I don't get the reaction that I expect, which puts a lot of pressure on the other person, I get insecure. And so, separating feelings from facts is another one. Feeling inadequate does not mean that you are inadequate. I've had to teach myself that, Chris, you're going to make mistakes, but you're not a mistake. That's a deep conceptual thing for me, is because I do make a lot of mistakes, and the committee in my head says, well, you're an idiot. There you go doing it again. There you go starting an argument. There you go shooting your mouth. There you go doing something like that. The emotions I have, they're like signals. The signals I have are not truth. The signals should allow me to say, okay, this is what's happening. And when those doubts and those emotions and those things come up, does not mean that that's truth. Those are just the emotions I'm having based on an event or a circumstance. When I think about other insecurities and things like that, I've had to look at like not comparing to others. Jealousy and envy, wanting what others have, has been a big part of my insecurity too. I think about after my neck injury, I would compare a lot of what other people had, and I would get mad that I didn't have it. And that could have been the simplest things as the ability to run, the ability to play organized sports. Comparing myself to others, comparing myself to my past self, my current self to my past self. There are days that is a big struggle, because I remember a 22 or 23-year-old guy whose engine was always going, could stay up late, party all day. And sometimes I miss that. Most days I don't, but that doesn't mean I still don't compare who I am today to where I was, which I felt like was an able-bodied person. I'm working on building my internal validation. And so I have to think about my values. What are my belief systems? What do I define as success within my own values and belief systems? Not what other people think, not other people's opinions. And I think that helps with my internal dialogue. My values and beliefs and the attitude I have towards things is important to me. And my belief system and value system has changed immensely over the last 10, 15 years. Family is important to me. That is a value system that is important to me. Being loyal, being someone who's going to do what they say they're going to do, show up to those people, be there for those people. There was a period of time that didn't matter to me. Another thing too is to me, celebrating the small wins is a big deal. And so my hope is after I'm done with this, and I'm going to have to do some of this dialogue, is to tell myself that the committee in my head's telling me that was dumb and that didn't make sense and all that other stuff. But I'm going to have to celebrate the small win of doing this, because this is not something that a lot of people would do. Get on a mic as a man and talk about insecurities. I'm going to continue to learn from my mistakes instead of judging them. I think that's an important thing for me, and I guess other people to think about, is that I know I'm going to make mistakes. So rather than judge myself or others, why don't we show some compassion and forgiveness? And maybe at the end of this is just my call to say, hey, you know what, Chris, this is a good reminder that you need to seek your support out. You need to talk to your trusted friends and mentors and the people that are in your inner circle that support you and build up who you are, and to avoid the ones that are destructive and the ones that tear you down, that keep you in those mindsets of insecurity, that make you feel misunderstood. Learning to name this is a big piece. Around the world, there's a lot of fear and indecision and anger, a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of topics that people don't want to talk about. There's a lot of people that won't say anything, and fear thrives on worry about the future. What if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if I get fired? What if I'm not enough? One of my other biggest insecurities is being around what I would consider godly Christian men. One of my other big ones, you guys, I don't like feeling dumb. But then when I'm around people, specifically when it comes to topic that I don't know or that I don't understand, I just tend to sit there and not say anything. And when I do say something, I'm, oh my gosh, what the heck did I just say? What the heck did I just do? Because all of a sudden my brain starts to come out and go, oh my gosh, what you just said was stupid, and the chaos that you just created. I am a work in progress. I'm under construction, but I'm proud to be under construction. I'm proud to be someone who says, you know what, I'm a man. I deal with insecurities. I deal with fear. I deal with doubt. I do feel inadequate at times. I want to avoid people. I don't want to be a person that always has to be the happy-go-lucky, super excited person. I want to be the back of the crowd sometimes that just gets to sit there and take it all in and process that. When insecurity has no healthy outlet, it often finds unhealthy ones. And that's really something that I want to avoid. I don't want to get into unhealthy stuff. I don't. I've really been trying to do some spiritual stuff for myself to make myself feel better. But even then, I've failed at a lot of that recently. Unhealthy eating habits and not sleeping very well, watching a lot of basketball, looking at my phone, nicotine packets. It's just like blah, 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 blah. And so, when my insecurities come up and I don't deal with them in a healthy way, part of that addictive brain I have tries to find unhealthy things to kind of get my mind off of it. Just wastes of time. And that can create anger and resentment towards others. And it's unhealthy in the sense, like, I look at my wife, I'm dealing with my insecurities. I don't want to talk to her. I avoid, want to be in control. I have zero clue what or where this is going to go. But I guess in summary, the thing that I had written down, admitting weakness is not failure. It's the beginning of trust. And part of this too is I'm trusting in my ability to be vulnerable and talk about my insecurities. And I'm trusting that the more I do it, that hopefully there will be growth for me. And if not just for me, for you, that maybe you can talk to your spouse. If you're a man listening, but maybe if you're a wife, ask them about some of their insecurities. Rather than just judging and asking why they're doing this and why they're doing that, try to build some of that trust together to reconnect within that godly marriage, that you guys can have open conversations. Because I can guarantee you all of us are going through some sort of insecurity. Fear and insecurity are real, but they're not meant to dominate us. Our security is found in God's presence, not our performance. Identity in Christ replaces comparison and self-doubt. And then I guess the last thing that I'll say that I had written down is you are not defined by fear. You are defined by God's love. And I know that I was created by God. I am his perfect son. I've been forgiven for all of this horrible, nasty stuff that I've done. And so part of my job and my goal here on earth is to fight these insecurities and fight this fear, fight this doubt that I have, because I have been gifted. I hope my rambling for 45 minutes or whatever the heck it has been hits home with some of you. Others, I probably lost you at the beginning because you didn't hear Amanda's voice. And I don't have the laughter, and I don't have some of the on mic skills that she has. But the one thing that I will say, as I close this, I'm not afraid to tell you that I'm an insecure man, that I am fearful, and that I have things that I need to continue to work on. With that, God bless. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.